My girlfriend told everyone I was abusive so she could justify leaving me. I found out from her sister. That's how it started. I was sitting in my car outside the Walgreens on Pine and 7th, just killing time before my shift, when my phone buzzed. I looked down expecting some group chat nonsense, but it was a text from Claire. Hey, just want to say I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know she was going to tell people that stuff about you. I stared at it. Read it twice. My stomach sank. Claire was Leah's younger sister, 19, maybe 20, and we hadn't talked much outside of family dinners. For her to message me out of nowhere like that, it meant something serious had happened. I asked her what she meant. No reply. 10 minutes later, I called, and she picked up. Her voice was quiet, nervous. She kept saying she didn't want to get involved, but she also said she felt guilty not telling me. Leah's been saying stuff, she finally admitted. To her friends, to Mom, to people at school. She said you were emotionally abusive, that she was scared of you. I don't remember what I said back. I think I laughed a little, one of those dry, shocked laughs that doesn't sound right. Then I asked if she was sure. She said you'd try to twist it if anyone found out, Claire added, like she was quoting her, that you'd act like she made it all up. I didn't say anything after that. My brain was trying to catch up to what I was hearing, but I just felt like I'd stepped off a curb I didn't know was there. I thanked her for telling me, then hung up. I didn't go to work. I sat in the car for over an hour. Leah and I had broken up 4 days earlier. It wasn't a blow-up or anything. She just came over one night, sat on my bed, and said she didn't want to keep doing this. She said she felt like she'd lost herself in the relationship, that she needed time to figure out who she was. I didn't argue. I was stunned. But I didn't beg or shout or try to talk her out of it. I remember nodding. She cried a little. I walked her to her car. She hugged me. That was it. I didn't think she was lying. I thought we were just ending. Like people do. That night, I texted her. I told her I missed her but respected what she needed. She said thank you and that she hoped we could be friends eventually. Nothing in her tone was cold or angry. If anything, it felt overly polite, stiff. Now I was being told that within days of that conversation, she'd already started telling people I was abusive. I didn't understand what she meant by that. Abusive how? I'd never laid a hand on her. I'd never yelled at her in public, never tracked her phone, never told her who to talk to. We had arguments. Normal ones. Sometimes she got quiet and shut down, and I pushed her to talk when maybe she wasn't ready. But nothing that ever felt dangerous. Nothing I imagined she'd even remember weeks later, let alone call. Abusive. I scrolled back through our old texts for some clue. Something that might have felt different to her than it did to me. Something I missed. There wasn't much. I told her I loved her more than she loved me. Once I told her I didn't like how much she drank when she went out. One time I got upset that she didn't text me all day and didn't explain until 10 p.m. That was probably our worst fight. Still, I couldn't connect that to what Claire said. She said you were emotionally abusive, that she was scared of you. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept waiting for Leah to reach out, to text me, maybe even just to check in, but she didn't. The next morning I texted her. Did I do something that made you feel unsafe? No reply. I waited all day. Around 10 p.m., I sent another message. Claire told me what you've been saying. I really want to understand. Please talk to me. The next morning, I was blocked. Her Instagram, gone. My number, blocked. Even Spotify, our shared playlist, had vanished. I didn't know what to do. I tried messaging her best friend, Tessa. She saw the message and never replied. Then she blocked me too. 2 days later, I started getting weird texts from numbers I didn't know. Wow, classic manipulator. Get help. You should be in jail. That's when I knew it wasn't just Leah's close circle. She was telling more people, mutual friends, maybe people at her work or school, people who didn't know me, people who were taking her word for it and deciding I was a threat. I called my friend Owen, someone who knew both of us but mostly hung out with me. He sounded hesitant, like he'd already heard something. Man, I don't know, he said. She told Rachel you used to gaslight her, that you'd call her crazy, make her think she was imagining things. I asked if he believed her. He didn't answer right away. I don't know what to believe, he finally said. You always seemed like a decent guy, but I wasn't there. That was the part that gutted me. I wasn't there. No one was. She could say anything, and there was nothing I could do to prove it wasn't true. It was harder to explain than I expected. The day after Owen said he didn't know what to believe, I sat at my desk with a blank Google Doc open for hours, trying to write something. Not for her, I knew that door was shut, but for myself, for my own sanity. I thought if I wrote out everything that had happened between us, I could make sense of it, find the moment when things tipped. The part I missed. We'd been together for a year and a half. I met Leah through friends during a camping trip up near Sand Hollow. She'd come with someone else, a guy she said she used to date, but they were just friends now. I didn't think much of it at the time. She was funny, smart, always making some joke about how miserable she was outdoors. I remember watching her try to open a can of beans with a rock because no one brought a can opener. She was stubborn like that, always doing things her way, even if it didn't make sense. We didn't start talking seriously until a few weeks later. She DM'd me about a book I'd posted on my story, said she just finished it and needed to yell about the ending. That led to a 2-hour conversation, then a plan to meet up for coffee. From there, it happened fast. I liked how sure she was of herself. She had this way of talking that made everything sound like a fact, even her opinions. I didn't mind that she was a little intense sometimes. She cared about things, about people. She'd cry during documentaries, stop to talk to stray cats, go completely silent when she was mad until she was ready to let you back in. It made her feel complicated, but in a good way. I wanted to understand her. The first time I noticed something strange was maybe 3 months in. We'd gone out to a movie, and afterward I mentioned something. Dumb. A girl I used to know who had been at the same theater. Leah went quiet. Not just quiet, but distant. The whole drive home, she didn't say a word. When I asked what was wrong, she said, "Nothing," and looked out the window. Later that night, she told me it made her feel like I was comparing her to someone else. That it felt like I missed my old life more than I liked my current one. I told her she was reading into things too much. That it wasn't like that. She started crying. Told me she just didn't want to feel replaceable. I apologized. Even though I didn't think I'd done anything wrong, I didn't want her to feel like that. After that, I stopped mentioning old friends unless she brought them up first. Over time, there were more moments like that. Moments where I said something casual and she took it personally. I learned to walk carefully. Not because I was scared of her, but because I didn't want to hurt her. I figured that's just what love was, adjusting, learning each other's sore spots. Looking back, I don't think she ever adjusted to mine. She'd tell stories about her exes, not just stories, but detailed accounts of how badly they treated her. She said one of them once threw a plate at a wall. Another stalked her after she broke up with him. Another cheated on her 5 times, and she found out from a friend. When I asked why she stayed in those relationships so long, she said she didn't know, that she kept trying to fix things that were broken. I told her she didn't have to do that with me, that she could just be with someone who wanted her to be happy. She smiled when I said that, pulled me in by my shirt and said, "You're different." That stuck with me. I wanted to be different. I wanted to prove that not all guys were like the ones she described. When we fought, I always tried to stay calm. I'd take a minute, breathe, ask her what she needed, but sometimes she'd say I was too calm, that it made her feel like I didn't care. "You look at me like you're trying to solve me," she said once, "like I'm a puzzle or something." I asked her if that was a bad thing. She didn't answer. We never had any dramatic breakups or big scandals. We had quiet tension. Nights where she said she felt alone even when I was sitting next to her. Days when she'd post vague quotes on her story, stuff like, "Healing isn't linear," or "Just because it's not physical doesn't mean it doesn't hurt." And if I asked what was wrong, she'd say I was making it about myself. I didn't know how to fix that. I tried being more supportive, more affectionate. I let her vent when she was upset at other people. I gave her space when she said she needed it. But no matter what I did, there was always this underlying feeling that I was falling short of some expectation she couldn't name. Still, I never thought she'd say I was abusive. I never even thought she'd leave. Not like that. I remember the last week we were together. It felt normal. We made dinner together. Watched a terrible reality show she loved. Had sex once or twice. She talked about taking a weekend trip in the spring. There was no sign of anything breaking. Then, 4 days later, she ended it. Calmly, gently, and within days, she'd told everyone around her that I was dangerous. I don't know what that makes me. Or her. 2 weeks after the breakup, I ran into Hannah in the parking lot behind the co-op grocery store. She used to come to game nights at our place. Leah's friend first, but we'd gotten along fine. She was walking out as I was walking in, and when she saw me, she paused for just a second. Not like she was surprised, more like she was deciding whether to pretend she hadn't seen me. Then she smiled. Too tightly. I said, "Hey," like nothing was weird. She said, "Hey," too, and looked past me. I could feel it immediately. This invisible wall, like she didn't want to be standing near me. Still, I tried. "How have you been?" She gave a quick shrug. "Good. Busy." "Cool," I said. Can I ask you something?" She didn't say yes, but she didn't walk away either. "Did Leah say something to you? Like, about me?" She looked uncomfortable. "I don't think I should get into that." I waited. She shifted the bag in her arms. Then finally, she sighed and said, "She told me some stuff. About how you treated her. I believe her." "Like what kind of stuff?" "She said you'd isolate her. That you were controlling. That you used guilt to make her stay." That last one, guilt, hit me the hardest. Because if I'm honest, I did feel guilty a lot, and I probably said more than once, "I don't know what I did wrong." Maybe that came off as trying to flip it back on her. Maybe it was that sometimes. "I never tried to control her," I said. "I don't even know what she's talking about." Hannah shrugged again. "I'm not trying to take sides, but I saw the way she looked after you guys would fight. She always seemed scared to say the wrong thing." Then she left. That sentence stuck with me for days. She always seemed scared to say the wrong thing. It made me question everything, every argument, every tense conversation. Was I talking over her? Was I invalidating her? Was I too logical, too cold? Did she feel like she had to manage my moods? I didn't think I had moods to manage. I kept replaying one particular fight from a few months before the breakup. It was late, close to midnight. We'd gone out to dinner, and I'd said something like, "You've been quiet tonight," and she answered, "I'm just tired." Later in the car, she suddenly said I was always analyzing her, that it made her feel like she was under surveillance. I remember saying, "I'm just trying to connect with you. That's all." She said, "It doesn't feel like that. It feels like you need me to perform a certain version of myself." That hurt, because it wasn't true, or I didn't think it was. But I apologized anyway. I told her I'd try to be more present, less focused on what I thought she was feeling. She nodded, didn't say much. We drove home in silence. Now I wondered if that was one of the moments she'd replayed for people. If she told them I was manipulative because I didn't just accept her moods at face value. If trying to talk through things made her feel cornered. If trying to fix things made her feel broken. But that wasn't abuse, was it? I told myself if she had talked to me about it directly, I would have listened. I would have changed. But maybe that was part of the story she was telling too. That I'd pretend to care, just to shut her up. That I said what she wanted to hear and then did whatever I wanted anyway. Once I started thinking that way, I couldn't stop. Every word I'd ever said felt suspicious in hindsight. Every joke I made about her being dramatic. Every time I checked in when she was out late and didn't text me back. Was I worried? Or was I policing her? She hadn't just rewritten our relationship. She'd planted the idea that if I disagreed with her version of things, that only proved she was right. I remembered something else Claire had said on that first call. She said you'd try to spin it and make people think she was unstable. I hadn't said that out loud to anyone, but I had thought it. Leah could be unpredictable, especially when she felt threatened. She had this way of escalating things emotionally until she was crying and I was left trying to calm her down without even knowing what triggered it. But now I couldn't even think that without feeling like I was becoming the exact version of me she'd described to everyone else. I tried to talk to my older brother about it. We were never super close, but he's blunt in a way that I usually find helpful. We met for drinks, and I told him the basics, that Leah had left, then started telling people I was abusive. He asked, "Did you cheat?" "No." "Hit her?" "God, no." "Yell? Threaten? Break stuff?" "No, none of that, I swear." "Then who cares what she says?" I wanted to say, I care because people believe her, but I didn't say anything. He wouldn't get it. To him, if something wasn't provable, it didn't exist. And in a way, that used to be how I thought too. That facts won out. That evidence mattered. But this wasn't about evidence. It was about narrative. Leah got ahead of the story. She made sure her version was the one everyone heard first, and I knew that if I tried to clear my name of sin, it would sound like damage control. And the worst part was, I wasn't even sure what I was denying anymore. A month after the breakup, I finally heard her voice again, just not the way I wanted. It happened on a Saturday. I was over at Owen's place for what was supposed to be a low-key night. Just a few friends, some drinks, nothing big. I almost didn't go. I'd been avoiding anything that involved shared circles, but Owen said it'd be mostly his people, no one from Leah's side. He was right. At first, it was mostly guys from his job, some new faces I didn't recognize. I was in the kitchen getting a beer when I heard someone in the living room say Leah's name. I froze. I couldn't see them, but I heard one of the guys say, "That's the girl who dated that guy. What's his name, Tyler?" Another voice chimed in. "No, it was Nate." "Right, Nate, the one who used to stalk her." I stepped into the hall just in time to see who was talking. A guy in a denim jacket I'd never seen before, sitting cross-legged on the floor. He looked younger than me, maybe 21. I said, "What did you just say?" He looked up, half smirking. "Nothing, just that you used to date Leah." "And stalk her?" The guy raised his hands like it was a joke. "That's what she told people, man." "I don't know. Chill." Owen came over, pulled me aside, said, "Don't make this a thing," under his breath. I left before midnight. That night, I couldn't sleep. The word stalk kept looping in my head. That wasn't just a misunderstanding. That was a deliberate escalation. A dangerous one. That was her turning the dial further, going from vague emotional abuse to criminal implication. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since she blocked me. I checked her Twitter. She hadn't blocked me there. Maybe she forgot. Or maybe she left it open on purpose. The first thing I saw was a tweet from 3 days ago. It's wild how someone can mess with your head for over a year and still think they're the victim. Below it were replies from her friends. "You're so strong for leaving." "I'm glad you got out. I saw the signs." "F him." Then, a few tweets down, one from a week earlier. "People don't believe you unless there are bruises, but emotional abuse is still abuse." No names, nothing specific, but the message was clear, and now it was public. I didn't respond. I knew better than to reply, or post my own version. The second I defended myself, I'd just look guilty. That was the power she had. She could say as much or as little as she wanted, and either way, I lost. But I couldn't just sit with it anymore. I needed someone to talk to who hadn't already picked a side. So I called Jenna. We weren't close, not anymore. She was my ex, before Leah, someone I dated for almost a year, a lifetime ago. The breakup had been mutual and mostly drama-free. We hadn't spoken in over 2 years, but I figured if anyone could be honest with me, it might be her. She agreed to meet for coffee. When I showed up, she looked surprised, maybe even a little worried. I told her why I'd reached out. She listened. Quiet, calm, eyes steady on mine. When I finished, she asked, "Did you ever do that stuff with me?" "No," I said. "I don't think so." "Because I would have told you." "I know." She sipped her drink. Leah always seemed fragile, like she needed everyone to tiptoe around her emotions. That was the first time someone said something like that out loud. Then she added, "But that doesn't mean she's lying. Sometimes people rewrite things in their head to survive them. It doesn't make it true, it just makes it feel true to them." It was the closest thing to validation I'd gotten, and even then, it was cautious, careful. I asked Jenna if, back when we were together, I ever made her feel small, or manipulated, or scared. She said, "No, you were overly logical sometimes, hard to read, but not unsafe." Do you think people can lie to themselves that well? She didn't answer that right away. Then she said, "Sometimes it's easier to believe you were a victim than to accept that you hurt someone and didn't mean to." I didn't know if she was talking about Leah or me. After that, I started noticing the pattern. Leah wasn't just talking to people. She was cultivating a version of herself. A survivor. A girl who escaped. She changed her Instagram bio to a butterfly emoji and a quote about growth. She posted more selfies than she ever had before, almost all of them with captions about freedom and rebirth. She was building a narrative. And it was working. I got a call from a mutual friend named Casey, someone who'd kept her distance since the breakup. She said, "I wasn't going to get involved, but I figured you should know. Leah told people you used to track her location without asking." My chest tightened. "That's not true. She said you got mad whenever she turned it off. I didn't even know she had it off most of the time." "I believe you," she said quietly, "but people are talking." That night, I deleted the last photo I had of us together. It was taken on her birthday. She was laughing in it, holding a slice of cake. She looked happy. Now I wondered if she'd always been pretending. Or if I had. I didn't mean to find the screenshots. I wasn't digging or snooping or anything like that. They were sent to me by someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly a year. Mark, an old classmate of mine from college. We'd had a few classes together. Nothing deep, but we were still connected on Instagram. He messaged me out of nowhere. "Hey man, random, but thought you should see this. Didn't feel right keeping quiet." Attached were 3 screenshots. The first was a group chat. The header read, "Girls Only," and there were at least 6 people in it. I didn't know any of the names besides Leah's. She'd sent a message that read, "TBH, I think I have to frame this in a way where I'm the one who got hurt. Otherwise, it looks like I just ghosted him." Another girl replied, "You kinda of did though. LOL. Leah, "Yeah, but if I say he was manipulative, PPL get it. I'm not making stuff up. I just have to shape it right." The second screenshot was from her private story on Snapchat. A selfie captioned, "When you realize all it takes is the right phrasing and people will defend you no matter what." The third was a DM exchange between Leah and someone named Danny. I didn't have the full context, but Leah had written, "Honestly, I don't even feel that bad. He'll be fine. I just needed a clean exit." I stared at my screen for a long time. It felt fake. Not because it didn't sound like her, it did, but because it was so blunt, so clear, like catching someone whispering about you and then turning around to smile in your face. Except in this case, I didn't even get the smile. Just the whispers. I didn't respond to Mark right away. I was too stunned. Eventually, I wrote back, "How did you get these?" He said one of his friends was in that group chat and leaked them. Apparently, she didn't like the way Leah had weaponized the story after the fact. Mark didn't want to get dragged into drama, but he said he thought I deserved to know. I thanked him. That was it. Then I just sat there, phone in my lap, shaking. It wasn't just that she'd lied, it was that she'd planned it. That text, "I have to frame this in a way where I'm the one who got hurt." That wasn't misremembering. That wasn't being caught up in emotion or telling a softer version to save face. That was strategy. Cold. Deliberate. It undid everything I'd been telling myself. That maybe we just had different versions of the truth. That maybe her experience was shaped by fear I didn't know I was causing. That I'd failed to understand her emotional needs. All those thoughts, hard as they were, at least gave her the benefit of sincerity. But this was a script. She'd used people, used pain, used the language of trauma to cover the fact that she just wanted out. And she couldn't admit that without looking selfish, so she made me the reason. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone or scream or spiral. I just sat there for a long time, feeling cold all over, like my body didn't know what to do with the information. Eventually, I sent the screenshots to Owen. He called within minutes. "Holy shit," he said. "This is real?" "Yeah." "Dude." That's all he said for a while. Just, dude, like he couldn't believe it. Then, "You need to show people." I said, "Who? Who's still listening?" I'd already been cast in a role. Abuser, gaslighter, emotional manipulator, and now, even with proof, the damage was done. If I shared it, I'd look vindictive. If I stayed quiet, I'd look guilty. There was no winning move anymore. Owen said he'd talk to a few people, try to clear the air. But I told him not to. I was tired. I didn't want to keep reliving it just to defend myself against things I didn't even do. That night, I got a call from Claire again, Leah's sister. She sounded upset. I could hear her pacing. She said, "I saw those messages. Someone sent them to me." I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry," she said. "I believed her. I told people what she told me. I feel like I helped ruin your life." "You didn't ruin anything," I said, though I didn't fully believe it. "You didn't know. She lied to everyone. To me. I thought she was scared of you." "I know. I don't get it. Why would she do that?" I didn't have an answer for her. Not a good one. Claire kept talking. She said she was thinking about confronting Leah, about showing their parents. She said this wasn't just about a breakup anymore, it was about accountability, about integrity. I could hear the anger rising in her voice, and maybe that should have felt good. like justice. But it didn't. It just made me feel tired again. I told her not to worry about me, that I'd figure it out, that I appreciated her calling. After we hung up, I scrolled through my phone, deleted the pictures, deleted her number, deleted the playlist, deleted the draft of the letter I'd written weeks ago but never sent. I didn't need it anymore. I had the truth now, and the truth didn't fix anything. But at least I wasn't crazy. The fallout came slowly. At first, it was just little changes. People I hadn't heard from in weeks started liking my posts again. A couple of texts trickled in, short, cautious ones. Hey, just wanted to say I'm sorry if I judged too fast. Didn't realize there was more to the story. No one apologized directly. Not really. No one said, I called you an abuser and now I don't know what to believe. But I could feel it. The shift. The quiet rebalancing of the scales. The beginning of doubt on their end after weeks of certainty. I didn't respond to most of them. I didn't want to open those doors again just because people were uncomfortable sitting in the silence they'd helped create. Owen called me every other day, for a while. I could tell he felt guilty, even though he never said it outright. He gave me updates, like it was news I might be waiting for. Casey said she's telling people the screenshots are real. Jules actually unfollowed Leah. Someone told me Leah locked her Twitter. I didn't care. I mean, I did, but not in the way he thought. I wasn't looking for payback or a clean reversal. I wasn't hoping people would rally around me the way they had around her. I just wanted to not be in the center of it anymore. I wanted people to stop looking at me like I was a warning sign. The real damage had already been done. Inside. I'd stopped trusting my memory. I'd be lying if I said those first few weeks hadn't gotten to me. Even before the screenshots, I spent hours reliving every argument, every word I'd said in frustration or confusion. I'd built this mental catalog of possible mistakes, hoping that if I found the right one, the story might make sense. Now, I looked back at those same moments with new eyes, and they felt contaminated in a different way. Not with shame, but with violation. Like I'd been tricked into doubting myself so deeply. And for what? So someone else could leave clean? There were nights I'd lie in bed and think about the exact second she made her choice. Was it before she broke up with me? Did she write that group chat message while I was still texting her, I hope you're okay? Was she rehearsing her story while I was blaming myself for what went wrong? It made me question my instincts. Not just about her, but about everyone. I found myself pulling back from conversations, second-guessing compliments, scanning texts for tone. I couldn't tell if people meant what they said anymore. I couldn't tell if I was reading things too closely or not closely enough. It felt like I was living through glass, always slightly removed, never sure how I was being seen or interpreted. I went on one date just to try. A girl I met through a coworker. She was nice, warm, quick-witted, easy to talk to. We sat at a little bar near 4th and talked about music, movies, college memories. I was doing okay until she asked, "So when was your last relationship?" I told her the truth. A few months ago. What happened? And I froze. Because what could I say? She told people I was abusive to justify leaving. She made it up, and everyone believed her. I only found out the truth because someone leaked her messages. I couldn't say that. It sounded unbelievable, even to me. So I said, we weren't right for each other. She nodded like she understood, but after that, the energy shifted. Or maybe I imagined that part. We finished our drinks, said maybe we'd hang out again sometime. She never texted me. I didn't follow up. That's when I realized how deep it went. This thing she'd done, it wasn't just about reputation. It had infected how I moved through the world, how I connected, how I explained myself. It had made me unsure of my own innocence, because even proving it hadn't made the doubt go away. I talked to Jenna again, just once. She asked how I was holding up. I told her the truth. I'm not angry, I said. I'm just tired of defending my reality. She understood. At least I think she did. She said, you'll date again. You'll trust again. It just takes longer when you've been miscast. Miscast? You were made into someone you weren't. That's hard to shake off. We talked for a while after that. She told me about her new job, her new city. I told her I was thinking of moving. She said maybe that's a good idea. Not to run away, but to start from zero somewhere that doesn't know your name or her story. I thought about that a lot in the days that followed, not because I believed I could outrun what had happened, but because I needed to stop living in a place where every street, every bar, every mutual friend felt like a question mark, where everything reminded me of a lie I didn't tell, but still had to carry. She left me, but she didn't just leave. She burned the path behind her and handed me the ashes. The first real consequence landed in my lap on a Thursday morning in March. I was at work, halfway through a spreadsheet, when my manager popped his head into my cubicle and said, "Can I see you in the office for a minute?" I thought maybe it was about the deadline I'd pushed back or the PTO request I hadn't followed up on. Normal stuff. But as soon as I walked into his office and saw our HR rep sitting at the table, I knew it wasn't normal. Her name was Diane, middle-aged, always polite, always formal. She gestured for me to sit, and then she said, "We received a concern from someone outside the company about you. A personal matter, but serious enough that we're obligated to look into it." I stared at her. What kind of concern? She hesitated, then read from a printed page. There's an anonymous tip claiming you've been emotionally abusive in past relationships, specifically that you created an unsafe environment for women. I felt everything drain out of me. I looked at her, then my manager, and asked, "Who sent this?" "We can't disclose that," Diane said. Of course they couldn't. It didn't come from within the company, she clarified, but because we work with external partners and clients, we have to ensure a safe and professional environment. I sat there, stunned. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't brought my personal life into work. I'd never even so much as talked about Leah to anyone here. This is false, I said quietly. Someone I dated spread rumors about me after she left. I can prove she fabricated them. We're not making any assumptions, Diane said. Right now, this is just a preliminary conversation. We have no reason to believe you've acted inappropriately here, but these kinds of accusations, even if unverified, can impact our brand and client relationships. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My brand? They didn't fire me. They didn't suspend me, but they said they'd be monitoring the situation, which felt worse in some ways. Like I was a hazard they were keeping tabs on. Like any wrong move could be the one that proved her right. I spent the rest of the day in a fog. I finished my work. I answered emails. But I didn't feel present. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. For someone else to find those old tweets, or the messages Leah's friends might have posted in a story that disappeared after 24 hours. The truth was, once a label like that is attached to your name, it doesn't take much to ignite it again. That weekend, I deleted every public post I'd ever made online. I scrubbed my Facebook, set my Instagram to private, changed my LinkedIn photo. It felt like trying to clean a crime scene I hadn't committed. I thought about quitting. Not just my job, everything, moving, disappearing, changing my number, maybe even my name. Not because I was guilty, but because I didn't know how long I'd have to keep proving I wasn't. The worst part was knowing that if I tried to fight it publicly, I'd look vindictive. If I stayed silent, I looked like I had something to hide, so I did nothing. I let people think what they wanted, but then something happened that I didn't expect. Claire, Leah's sister, posted the screenshots, not just the ones Mark had sent me. More, the full group chat, the private story posts, DMs, all of it. She didn't tag Leah. She didn't write a long caption. She just posted them with the words, "Not everything is what it seems." It spread fast, faster than I thought it would. People shared it, commented, asked questions. A few of Leah's old friends unfollowed her publicly. Some even apologized to me in vague, roundabout ways. One girl posted a TikTok about how easy it is for activism language to be co-opted by people trying to cover up their own selfishness. Still, Leah didn't say anything. She didn't respond, didn't defend herself, didn't clarify. She just disappeared from the internet for a while. Deleted her Twitter, took down her Instagram. I thought it would feel like a win. It didn't. It felt like damage control. Like now I was the one being pitied, the wrongfully accused, the guy with receipts. But no one was talking about how it started, about how she'd left me quietly, smiling, saying she needed space, about how I'd spent weeks thinking I'd hurt someone, without knowing how, about how close I'd come to believing I deserved all of it. Now, people were moving on. The story had changed again, but I was still in it. Still the guy who'd been whispered about, doubted, analyzed like a character in someone else's novel, and I knew, deep down, that no amount of proof could ever really undo the damage she'd done. Not to my name, not to my job, not to me. I stopped trusting people without even meaning to. It started small. I'd ignore texts for hours, even when I had the time. I'd say maybe to every plan and follow through on almost none of them. I started pulling away from people I'd known for years, not because they'd done anything wrong, but because I didn't know what they really thought about me anymore. Some of them had distanced themselves during the worst of it, then circled back once the truth came out. I didn't forget that. I became suspicious of kindness. If someone reached out, I questioned their motives. Were they trying to make themselves feel better? Trying to feel noble for giving me a second chance? Or were they just being normal, and I couldn't recognize it anymore? Even when someone said, "I never believed her, by the way," I didn't believe them. By April, I wasn't really living. I was just going through the motions, working, sleeping, eating when I remembered to. I told people I was fine. I smiled when I needed to. But inside, I didn't feel much of anything. The part of me that used to reach for people, that used to want to be understood, was gone, burned out. I had this feeling all the time that something was wrong with me. Not because of what Leah said, but because I'd let it sit so deeply in me. Like some part of me had agreed with her, even after I knew the truth. I kept asking myself why. Why had it taken screenshots for me to believe my own version of the story? Why did I assume I was the one at fault? I started seeing a therapist in late April. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know what else to do. I was tired of not sleeping, tired of feeling like I was waiting for another accusation to drop from the sky. I didn't tell many people I was going. It felt like something I needed to keep private. One of the only things that still felt fully mine. Her name was Diane, too. Same as the HR rep, but she couldn't have been more different. She was soft-spoken, slow to interrupt. On the first day, she asked why I'd come in. I said, someone I loved convinced me I was hurting her, and I believed her, even though I wasn't. She just nodded. I kept talking. I told her about Leah, about the breakup, the things that came after. I told her about the group chat, the lies, the messages. I told her how everyone had believed it without question, how even now, months later, I didn't feel like myself anymore. At one point I said, I don't trust anyone. She asked, do you trust yourself? And I couldn't answer, because I didn't know. That was the hardest part. I used to feel solid inside. like I knew who I was, even if other people didn't. Now, I didn't feel like anything. I'd lost the version of me that used to speak with confidence, the version that could say, I'm not that kind of person, and actually mean it. The thing is, when someone tells the world you're dangerous, it doesn't just change how people see you, it changes how you see yourself, even when it's false, even when it's proven false. The words still echo, abusive, manipulative, controlling. It's hard to scrub those out of your head, even when you know they don't belong there. I had a dream one night where I was standing in front of a mirror, trying to explain myself, but my reflection kept shaking its head, like it didn't believe me. I woke up sweating. Couldn't go back to sleep. In therapy, I told Diane I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Leah, not really. What I felt was something worse. Emptiness. Like she'd hollowed out part of me and then walked away without ever looking back. We talked about that for a while. About identity, about shame, about how gaslighting doesn't just happen when someone's lying to you. It happens when you start lying to yourself just to make sense of things. Somewhere along the way, I'd convinced myself I must have done something. That no one walks away and invents a whole story unless they had some reason. I didn't realize how deeply that belief had sunk in, how much it had shaped the way I moved, spoke, looked at other people. At the end of one session, Diane said something I didn't expect. She said, "Your guilt isn't proof of wrongdoing. It's proof that you cared." I sat with that for a long time. It didn't fix everything. I still had nights where I spiraled, wondering what people were saying behind my back. I still hesitated before opening Instagram, unsure if I'd see some subtweet or cryptic story I wasn't meant to respond to. I still found myself drafting long messages in my head to people who'd written me off, trying to explain the truth in perfect, airtight language, then deleting them before I ever typed a word. But something started to shift, slowly. I stopped checking her accounts. I stopped asking mutuals what they'd heard. I stopped replaying our arguments in my head, trying to decode them for clues. Because I knew what had happened now, and I knew I didn't deserve it. I decided to move in June. It wasn't a dramatic decision. I didn't pack up overnight or cut ties with everyone. It was more like I stopped arguing with the part of me that had wanted to leave for months. The part that felt like I couldn't breathe in the same radius as her memory anymore. I found a place 2 hours north. A quieter town. Smaller, slower. No shared bars, no mutual friends. No one who knew me through her. It felt clean, like an untouched page. When I told Owen, he asked if I was running away. "No," I said. "I'm letting go." He offered to help me pack. So did a few others, the ones who had come back around once the screenshots leaked. I told them I appreciated it, but I wanted to do it alone. That was only half true. I didn't want to perform the leaving for anyone. I didn't want their help if it came with apologies they were too late to give. Packing up my apartment was harder than I thought. Not because of the stuff, I didn't have much worth keeping, but because of the things I found. Notes from her in drawers, a shirt of hers mixed in with mine, receipts from restaurants I didn't remember going to until I did. A photo strip from a booth we crammed into one rainy night where she made me promise not to smile like an old man. I kept the photo strip. Everything else I either tossed or boxed up. The night before I left, I walked through the empty apartment. Every room looked smaller without furniture. The echo of my footsteps made the space feel hollow, like the life I'd had here never really settled in. I sat on the floor of the bedroom and tried to remember the last time I felt at home here. Really at home. Before things fell apart. Before doubt lived in every corner, I couldn't find the moment. That's what struck me. There was no clean break, no single day when everything changed. It just eroded, slowly, until I was standing in the ruins without realizing I'd arrived. The next morning, I left early. The drive was uneventful, just long enough to let my brain wander, not long enough to romanticize the trip. I didn't play music for most of it. I just drove, watching the scenery shift around me. The new apartment was smaller, but the layout made sense. Clean white walls, high windows, hardwood floors. It smelled like paint and emptiness. I liked that. It didn't remind me of anything. For the first few weeks, I didn't unpack much, just the basics. A bed, a desk, plates, the essentials. It felt good to live light, to move through a space that didn't hold my history like a loaded gun. No one knew me here. Not really. A few coworkers at my new job, a barista who smiled every morning, the guy in the apartment next door, who borrowed a hammer. No one asked me why I moved. No one looked at me with questions in their eyes. I didn't have to explain anything. And I didn't follow her anymore. I stopped checking. Fully, finally. No more creeping on social media, no more mutuals, no more secondhand updates. I didn't know where she was, what she was posting, who she was with, and for the first time since she left, I didn't feel the pull to know. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was just distance, and that was enough. One night, I sat on my tiny balcony with a drink in my hand and realized I hadn't thought about her all day. Not once. I wasn't trying not to think about her. She just hadn't been there, like a ghost finally deciding to leave me alone. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel healed. I felt quiet. And in that quiet, I made a decision. I wasn't going to explain myself anymore. Not to people who had turned on me, not to the ones who had circled back, not even to the ones who meant well. If someone wanted to believe the worst, I couldn't stop them. If someone needed proof, I wasn't going to dig through old files and messages just to satisfy their doubt. I knew what happened. I lived it, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite me again. This was the version I was choosing. A man who lost something he didn't deserve to lose and kept going anyway. Not because he wanted revenge, not because he needed to be proven right, but because he finally understood that survival wasn't about winning. It was about walking away with your name intact, even if no one clapped, even if no one apologized, even if no one knew. 3 months passed before I saw someone from the old life. It was at a bookstore downtown, just after noon. I was flipping through a paperback near the philosophy section when I heard my name. Nate? I turned and saw Tessa, Leah's best friend. Or she had been. We hadn't spoken since before the breakup. She was thinner than Nate's. I remembered, dressed sharp, a to-go coffee in her hand. For a second, I thought she might walk away after seeing me. But she didn't. She stayed. Hey, I said. Careful. She looked me over like she was trying to decide who she was looking at. You mooked? She said. Yeah. Didn't think I'd run into you. Same. It was quiet after that. We both stood there, the weight of everything between us pressing down on the air. Then she said, I saw what Claire posted. I nodded. I didn't believe it at first, she added, but I saw the messages. It was pretty clear. I didn't say anything. She looked down at the book in my hand. You doing okay? I'm better now, I said. Took a while. She nodded slowly, then said, I didn't know what to say back then. I didn't want to pick a side, but not saying anything. You said enough by staying quiet, I interrupted. Not angry, just honest. She nodded again. Yeah, you're right. It was strange, hearing her say that. Even after everything, a part of me still expected people to dodge, to defend their distance. But she didn't. She looked around, then back at me. You don't have to forgive me, but I am sorry. I knew her longer than I knew you. I thought I was protecting her. I get it, I said, and I did. Maybe more than I wanted to. We didn't talk much after that. She said goodbye. I said good luck. She walked out of the store, and I never saw her again. But I didn't carry it with me when she left. Later that day, I went home and finished unpacking the last volume. It had been sitting in the corner of my closet for weeks, just random things I hadn't decided what to do with. Inside were a few books, an old hoodie, some junk mail I should have tossed. At the bottom, I found the photo strip. Her face, my arm around her shoulder, the two of us smiling like idiots, crammed into that tiny booth, like we really believed we'd figured it out. I held it for a second, then set it down on the desk. I didn't feel much. No rush of anger, no sadness, just a kind of distance, like it belonged to someone else. That night, I sat on the balcony again. Same chair, same quiet. But this time, I wasn't waiting for anything. Not a message, not an apology, not for it all to make sense. Some stories don't. Some people rewrite you because it's easier than facing themselves. Some people need you to be the villain because it's the only way they get to walk away clean. But I wasn't her villain. Not then, not now. I stayed with that thought a while. Not as a defense, not to prove anything. Just as a truth I finally felt settled in. And when I got up to go inside, I left the door open behind me.